Thank you all for being here. We have Israel Jones in the house tonight. Very excited. He's gonna, as I kind of mentioned to y'all on Tuesday, he's gonna give us a little bit of a lecture. We'll jump into some Q&A. We'll talk about Go With God, and we'll kind of continue the conversation that we were starting here at the beginning. And, we could do this all class break, I think, which would be fun. Israel asked me, like, how did you even find my music? And I was trying to remember where and what it was that I stumbled upon his page or song from his, and it was probably an earlier EP he did that I just found. It's called Bigger Purpose.
Yes, oh wow. Classic.
Something I found when I first moved to Gainesville, and I wanted to hear what Gainesville was about, right? And as somebody who's been thinking about hip hop for a long time, and who's probably the most heartbroken of all of you of Kanye's turn. I was in middle school, high school when Kanye was coming up, right? So that meant different things to me. I've learned that, if you want to listen to a sound, listen to a place, get a sense of a place, see what's going on, you gotta put your ears out there. And so I put my ears out there and I found Israel Jones's music. And when I first heard it, I never imagined that I would think about inviting him to class. And when I started putting this class together, I was like, I really want to bring Gainesville into the conversation, really think about what this Gold Coast sound was. He had just put out a couple of different tapes, and I want to just name them and not forget them. But he just put out The Sun Always Shines and Good Time, and I was like, this is going to fit so perfectly with the class. And y'all probably hear me talk plenty, and I hope you've gotten the sense that I really love Florida and Floridians. And so I want to be able to celebrate what Florida is and what Florida represents, and so what better way than to bring Israel to class. I want to say to support Israel if you appreciate his music, stream his music. Is your Bandcamp active?
Yes, my Bandcamp is active.
Find his Bandcamp.
Yes.
His Instagram is Israel Jones with 2 eyes at the beginning. Support local artists is kind of one of the best ways to really get engaged and get involved if you appreciate what he's doing. And so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Israel. He'll kind of get going on his lecture and get into our conversation. So
Yes. Thank you for inviting me. This is huge to me. I've been listening to hip hop since I was straight out of the womb, 4 or 5 years old. My father playing hip hop on the way to school. My mother playing gospel rap on the way to school. Rap was also always such a big part of me, right? So I knew one day I would be rapping. I didn't know one day I'd be teaching about rap, and I didn't know one day I'd have a classroom full of people who love hip hop the same way. So I'm appreciative of all of you as well. I'm grateful for even taking this class and believing in hip hop, right? It's a monument. It's huge. It's a mountain. And by being here and taking this class, you believe in it the same way that I believe in it. So I'm grateful for you all. My name is Bronson Israel Jones. Israel's my middle name. My real name is Bronson Jones. I was born in Gainesville, so I was forced to be a Gators fan growing up. I eventually went to FAMU, where I got my degree in English, taught there a little bit, and some of the projects that he was mentioning I released during the process of me learning to teach as well. The first part of the lecture, we're going to be going over some like the educational value in hip hop, right? I think it's important that we look at that and why can't hip hop be taught in the class? Why can't you learn the English language through hip hop, right? We're going to look at that. And then we're going to talk about, my creative process, the album, and then we're going to open it up and have like a Q&A about the album, and just a general Q&A at the end. Okay, so I want to start off with a question. There's no right or wrong answer. What does hip hop is bigger than the government mean to you? Anybody can answer?
I mean, I just know from the history that we've studied that in the early days they really tried to restrict and kind of shut it down.
Okay.
Especially when it was really literally on the streets and they were taking electricity from the streets and hosting these events. And they literally tried to shut them down and kind of raid the parties. And
Yes.
the culture is still able to kind of persist
Yes.
despite that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm thinking of NWA getting their concert shut down, being called, protest music, which it was, being shut down and thrown in jail over rap, right? That's perfect. Anybody else? What does it mean to you? When you see those lines, what fires off in your brain?
hip hop has the ability to influence and communicate with people in a way that the government doesn't.
Yes. Okay, it's more personal,
Mhm.
right? Hip hop is directly to the consumer. It's real. It's authentic. It's talking to you, where the government might be trying to talk around you, right? It's great.
I think it's also just how reactionary the genre is, like even like before even hip hop to rock, like so much music being like protest music, like you said.
Right.
I even think of like specifically like NWA when they had that story about how they made like F the Police.
Yes.
And how they'll say it was because deliberately of them having to deal with brutality, they immediately went and I don't need to make the song.
Right.
I think it being such a reaction to what you live in at the time is so
Right.
important.
Right. You have to do it, right? It jumps out at you. Like, there's nothing you can do but rap, right? Sometimes I feel that way in the times of the world where I want to do something, but all I can do is rap, right? There's nothing I can do but rap. It's very cool.
A big part of like starting hip hop originally was to keep people from like committing crimes or like fighting each other
Okay.
and like avoiding incarceration. And
Okay.
like at the time, a big focus for the government was to incarcerate
Right.
minorities in general.
Right.
And so I think like hip hop is bigger than the government in a sense of it began to separate people from that and from institutionalization
Right.
by the government.
Right.
And so I kind of see it from that perspective.
Right. That's a great point. I'm thinking about Grandmaster Flash.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
Grandmaster Flash.
Grandmaster Flash, and how when hip hop first started, it was to the hip, to the hop, to the skibbity, just that, rapper's delight, right? But Grandmaster Flash, one of the first people to shine the light on the slums, to use his lyrics for something else, That was the first time hip hop was really used as a vessel to tell the
And
truth.
like all the parties, and like the early parties, and specifically like the dance battles and the rap battles, just to keep people from like
Yes,
fighting and committing crime, is what that makes me think of.
yes, okay. Anybody else? Okay. Everything everybody said was right? There's no wrong answer, right? When I think of that, I see the value politically, right? That's what you're trying to say as well, right? But I think it's even more than that, right? By the government, I think she means as well, like the bounds that are tried to place on hip hop, whether it be people trying to restrict it, marginalize it, make it this minute thing, right? It's bigger than that, right? And then by hip hop, I think she means hip hop, yes, but I think she also means black music, right? D'Angelo, rest in peace. He's known as like the godfather of neo soul, right? But he hated neo soul. He hated the term neo soul because you put this thing that's funk, that's R&B, that's rap, that's rock and roll, and you put it in this small box, right? And that's what happens a lot with black music, right? Max Roach hated the word jazz because there's so many different forms of black expression, and you put it into the word jazz to minimalize it, right? So I think that's what Erykah Badu is saying as well. Not to give the biggest hip-hop backstory, we have a little bit of it. Hip-hop was started in 1973 by DJ Kool Herc, but the origins of hip-hop can even be traced before then, right? James Brown is known as the godfather of rap. If you listen to James Brown, paid the cost to be the boss. I was rapping and doing ad-libs and poetically flowing over this instrumental, right? He's known as the godfather of hip-hop before it was even a term, right? We can take it back even further than that with African griots who it was their job to know the village and know the history of the village and present it orally to the people in the village, right? Poetically, rhyming it. So even though hip hop was born in 1973, we can trace its ancestral roots centuries before, right? And it's important to know that in this lecture and in this class because we have to think of hip hop as this mountain, right? We have to think of it as, we can learn about it. We have to think of it as this thing that is important. We have to take the boundaries off of it. We have to understand that it's bigger than the government. Hip hop is so educational, right? The DNA of hip hop is so much education embedded in the DNA of hip hop, right? Now, if you listen to somebody who doesn't know hip hop, who doesn't like hip hop, right, it's what is this gangster music, right? What am I listening to, right? Remember when mumble rap was a thing and everybody was scared? Mumble rap, they got red colorful hair, right? When bling rap was a thing, he's making cell phone music, right? When gangster rap was a thing, but yet and still, that was 30 years ago. And hip hop is still here, right? There is so much value within rap, and people who are outside of the culture might not understand that, right? There's people who are taking 15 to 10-second clips that they hear on TikTok and using that as a generalization of this culture, right? We just had a 15-minute conversation about all the different intricacies within hip hop before the class even started, But let them tell that there's no actual value in it. It's just gangster music. It's just mumble rap. It's just bling rap. It's numbness, right? That's what we're fighting against today, right? One of the biggest things that you see in hip hop in terms of being able to be taught as education is the idea of literary devices, right? One of the easiest devices to see in hip hop is the simile, right? I'm something like this, something like that, right? Lil Wayne, I said we talk about Lil Wayne, he's the king of that, right? I think he's said he's liked something so much he might not have anything to say he's still like, which is the problem, right? Real G's moving silence like lasagna. Everybody loves that bar, right? Similes are great because they're the backbone of punchlines, right? But they're also the easiest segue for somebody who's not a hip hop listener to get into hip hop, right? It's easy to understand. Oh, you're this like that. Oh, that's funny. Oh, you're this like that. Oh, that's clever, right? It might be easier to understand that from somebody who's from outside of the culture, which is probably why Lil Wayne's fan base is so big. Because like he's running around trying to maneuver his way in the ghetto, and he's losing his mind, mistaking identity. What's the difference between that and some Shakespeare's tales, right? There's really no fundamental difference, right? But we learn about these authors. We learned about the Shakespeares. We learned about the Emily Dickinsons. We learned about the Ralph Waldo Emersons. We learned about these people. But we don't learn about the Scarfaces. We don't learn about the Kendricks. We don't learn about the J. Coles in class, right? Even though they're authors in their own right, poets in their own right. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, right? We're going to be looking at the proof of concept. Because all of this sounds nice, but you need proof. When you make a point like this, you need proof. I think this class is more than enough proof, right? But I've been doing the same thing at the school that I teach at in New Jersey. Slowly implementing hip hop into the curriculum. And watching not only students' engagement, but comprehension improve with the work. So when we think of literary devices, right, this is the nice English way of saying it. You know, I like big words, I'm English major. But when we break it down, right, we just think of literary devices as things that keep the story moving forward in an interesting way, right? Think of it as a utility belt. I got a little simile here, a little personification here, a metaphor here, right? And you use that and sprinkle it within your story and within your writing, right? You could say, I drove to work today, and everybody will understand the point you're trying to make, right? Or you could say the gray morning road quietly guided me to work, right? That paints a more interesting story, keeps the reader more engaged, right? Nobody, to me, is better at these devices than Andre 3000, right? I don't know if y'all know Solo Reprise by Frank Ocean. It's a great song. I don't know if you listen to it. The song's only a minute long, right? A minute and some change long, right? These are only the first 8 lines of the verse. And there's 5 literary devices within that. 8 lines in a 1-minute song. And we find 5 literary devices in that, right? So what can we say about Andre 3000's discography? How many literary devices are we going to find within his works, right? The better question, how many can we find in the whole grand scheme of hip hop? I'm able to find 5 devices in 8 lines, right? The imagery in so low that I can see under the skirt of an ant. I'm so low to the ground I can see under the skirt of the ant. But that's hyperbolic as well. A literary device, you can't see under the skirt of an ant. That's impossible. Don't even have skirts. What are you talking about? Right? The metaphor and no, but I'm so low, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm so low that I can see under the skirt of an ant, right? The eternal rhyme within solo, rojo, cholo, polo, logo, and not just rhyming for rhyming's sake, but rhyming that pushes the narrative forward in his story, right? Or the symbolism of the polo horse that he's saying, I'm so not on my high horse, I'm so sad, I'm so not on my high horse, that if I wear a polo, I would cut the polo horse off. How fitting is that, right? That's 5 devices in 8 lines that we picked from a 1-minute song. So what could we find in the rest of his discography, right? If we're using poetry and different English authors to teach about literary devices, what is the argument that rap is also not a good substitute for that? So I don't know if you guys have seen a Lupe Fiasco's presentation, but he has a similar presentation speaking about the educational value of hip hop, right? And when he thinks about the word rap, he tries to break it down to acronyms, right? Some of my favorite acronyms that he chose was recognizing analogous patterns and reconciling adversarial patterning. Like I said, I'm an English major, so that was everything to me. Yes, right? But a term you probably have heard before, and if you're not, I can introduce it to you now, which probably is more fitting, is that rap is rhythm and poetry. That's all it is. It's poetry to a beat, right? That's the only fundamental difference between poetry and rap. But even within that, there's so many times where they cross over. If you strip rap away and take away the beat, it's just a poem. I performed many of my raps at open mics and nobody knew the difference. They thought it was a poem, it was a rap, right? There's so many poems I've heard over instrumentals. See Words of Wisdom by Tupac. See Mortal Man by Kendrick. See Big Rube on any Outkast, Future, Pink Seafood album, right? If I'm doing poetry over a beat, then it just becomes a rap, right? There's no real fundamental difference, it's just the beat. So we're gonna look at Emily Dickinson's Because I Cannot Stop for Death and I Seen a Man Die by Scarface. I don't mean to get morbid, but these are some of their most influential works and it's very similar in theme, right? They both use personification to describe death in a beautiful way, right? For Emily Dickinson, it's a man, it's a gentleman who's driving around in a carriage showing her neighborhood, right? Before she goes, cruising around the neighborhood, living out her childhood. For Scarface, it's this weird, eerie creature who's behind you, who's lurking. And he's not pressed. I'm waiting to accept you because I know you're gonna come, right? This larger than life, this hard to tackle concept of death and life and mortality, they both treat them as people. Personification, literary device, used in a poem and used in a rap, right? They both use imagery to paint the picture. So you can see this figure that they're talking about, right? And see that the world that they're living in dealing with this figure, right? For Emily Dickinson is, we passed a school where children stroll, at recess in the ring, we passed the fields of gazing grain, we passed the setting sun. She's in the passenger of this carriage of this gentleman driving around, showing her life before her eyes, right? Before she goes. For Scarface is, and I'm gonna do my best Scarface impersonation, I'm sorry. For Scarface is, you see yourself in the light and still feeling out of place. You start your journey into outer space. So you standing in the tunnel of eternal life, and you see the ones you never learned to love in life, right? It's a death talking to him, showing him, you see your journey into outer space. He could have just said you died. But you see your journey into outer space, right? You're standing in the tunnel of eternal life. You get to heaven, right? But you see the ones you never learned to love in life. I thought this was heaven. And I'm seeing people I didn't want to see, I didn't like to see. They're both trying to tackle the idea of mortality, death, and life in this weird way. This weird concept that's hard for the human mind to grasp, right? What's truly the difference between these two texts? If I can get personification, imagery, hyperbole, eternal rhyme, for both of these texts, don't they serve the same purpose? I've been teaching in a class doing this for the past couple of months, right? I started a hip hop club at my school. And I noticed that the kids that I teach who are also in the hip hop club, how their engagement when it comes to different literature has increased, right? How many friends do you know read on a regular basis? Raise your hands if you know a friend that reads all the time. Okay. How many friends do you have that enjoy reading? Right? Okay. We are a little bit older than the generation that comes before us, right? It's easy to blame, oh, they don't want to read on technology. It's easy to blame the literacy rates on, oh, they're on TikTok all day, right? But we have to meet the students, the children, where they're at. Unfortunately, hip hop might be the only time where your little cousin, your little brother is absorbing literature. The only time where he might be breaking down lyrics and breaking down text might be rap, right? There's students at the school that I teach at that had a struggling time coming to school because they weren't interested in the text. The texts were hard to grasp and read. It was hard to say that, right? But showing them, hey, before we read Lord of the Flies, let's look at your favorite verse and see the similarities between the imagery in both of them. Helps them engage and comprehend the literature better, right? Because you're thinking about English more. You're processing English more. You're processing concepts more. That make it easier to process the harder concepts, right? Okay, so that was the education stuff, right? We get into the fun stuff now. So, right, a big part of this class is the Gulf Coast and the South and rap, right? So I wanted to talk about how place and location has influenced my work, right? When people ask me where I'm from, I just say North Florida. It's hard, you know. I went to school in Tallahassee for college. I went to PK Young in Gainesville. I lived in Waldo. My family's from Sparks, Florida. I went to church in Jacksonville. I just say I'm from North Florida, right? The things that I saw growing up, whether it be the gold grills, the 28-inch rims, the boiled peanuts, the grass, it's a little different here, the beach, the things that I saw are referenced in my writing constantly, right? The beauty of Florida, the struggle of Florida is referenced in my writing constantly, right? I moved to New Jersey a couple months ago, and when I look on the train, I look at people's faces, and they all look like miserable sometimes. Everybody looks miserable, right? But for a Florida man in the South, sometimes it's harder to find that misery on their face. You mask it a little bit well, right? That's found in my writing. Why is that? You know, directly I've been influenced by my father. This is a 1/8 of his CD collection, right? He has a giant shed of CDs and tapes of nothing but the greatest rappers in the world, right? And how do you have Scarface first album? What were you doing? Why do you have it on CD and tape and vinyl? What were you spending your money on, right? This is what I was listening to, right? In 4th grade, while the kids were singing DJ Khaled, All I Do Was Win, right? I was in the corner somewhere listening to Mos Def, somewhere on the playground, feeling totally isolated, but I was learning. I was absorbing English not only in the classroom, but on my day-to-day. I was listening to different rhyme schemes, literary devices, and storytelling all the time, constantly, right? So my father had that direct influence on me, and then I went out and found my own stuff, right? The UGKs of the world, the Outkast of the world, the Isaiah Rashads of the world, Pharcyde, Nas, Kendrick, the list can go on, of different rappers who have been referenced in my music. So it's a little bit of place, location, it's a little bit of generation before me, and it's a little bit of my own understanding, all combining, that make, you know, the music that you've heard so far. How many of y'all in here do art? Do art, okay? Make music? Okay, right? This is just my process, right? You can take it or leave it, right? Everybody has their own different thing. I like to take a little bit from everybody and make it my own, right? So hopefully this is able to help people that do art or whatever, right? Before I write, I like to freestyle constantly, right? I know we all have probably freestyle before with your friends after school or somewhere, turn on the beat and freestyle, right? I do that all the time before I write. It's very similar to your favorite jazz artist playing any instrument. The same thing shoot off in your brain, right? It helps me sketch out the song. Before you write an essay, you do an outline, right? Before I write this song, I freestyle. Same thing, they wash each other's hands, right? I outline the song before I write it. I listen to what the beat is saying. I know we were talking about samples in class. I listen to what the beat is trying to tell me before I write, right? Rappers have a great job of putting emotion into work, but producers as well. Jay Dilla is a great example of this. If you haven't heard Donuts, please listen to Donuts, right? He's talking to you on his deathbed through instrumentation, right? So I listen to what the beat is trying to tell me before I continue to write. Then there's repetition. I do it over and over and over and over again. And so everybody is tired of it. My girlfriend can attest to that. Right? And I keep in mind the environment that I'm in as well. Sometimes as an artist, as a creator, you get locked in a room with 4 walls. Sometimes it's hard for energy to come that way, right? I go outside, right on a walk, go to the beach, do it at my friend's house. Do it when I'm not supposed to be doing it. You know, do it late at night or early in the morning instead of locking myself in my room all day. It's hard for energy to flow like that sometimes, right? And I think about world building. What have I said before, and is that congruent to what I'm saying now, right? Am I saying something totally different than I was saying a year ago, a song ago, right? Because I'm building this world for the listener to step into. So you don't want to go into the world and be saying 2 totally different things. We were talking about Kanye earlier. That's a lot of the head scratching of Kanye fans. You said this 5 years ago, now you're saying this now. What happened, right? So thinking about the world that I built and how to keep it consistent, right? So we were talking about samples, and I wanted to highlight this as well, to put my own personal opinion on it and stop being an educator for just half a second. I really do not like the conversation around samples in hip hop, right? The pointing fingers of sampling right now, right? When that is the basis of hip hop for generations. Hip hop was based on taking what has came before you and making it something new. Not only that, it's helped keep artists' name alive, right? George Clinton and Ronald Isley and Sly Stone, all being sampled heavily throughout the 90s, helped keep their music alive, right? Helped introduce it to a new generation. How many times have you heard a sample in a song and been like, dang, what song is that? What did they sample? And now you love that song, right? That's the beautiful thing about it. Now, there's a way to do it tastefully and distastefully, but it's always going to be here, right? Q-Tip has this line, I love this line, where he says, Pops, don't you know things come in cycles? The same way that Bobby Brown is amping like Michael, right? Kind of hinting at the fact that his father was like, like, who is Bobby Brown? He's like, Bobby Brown, he has a lot of similarities to Michael Jackson, right? I was assuming that's what he meant by saying that in a way, right? It's singular, it comes around, and that's how sampling is. It's a beautiful thing. From Alchemist to Kanye to whoever, right? It's a fundamental part of hip hop and should stay around. That's his goal of God. Not last, but the last part of the, this part of the presentation. To put together with the samples as well, and while they're important, I wanted this album to sound Southern as possible. I wanted it to sound soulful and rich as possible. So every sample was picked for that reason, right? To help make this world be built, this Southern radio station, right? What can I put there, right? Once I had the samples, once I had the music, I changed my environment. Did the thing I just told y'all. I wrote outside, I wrote in the sun, I wrote in the grass, I ate my mom's Southern food. I tried to be as Southern as possible to embody this world that I was living in, right? I traveled to Tallahassee, to Gainesville, to Atlanta, all these places I'm speaking about in the album to further enrich myself in what I was speaking on, right? I watched different videos. I tried to put as much English education in my work, right? One example would be the song On Behalf of the South, where I'm using personification and speaking as if I'm Southern hip hop, right? And speaking through the lens of a disgruntled Southern hip hop. You stole from me. You took my style. You don't give me my credit, and I want my credit for the good and the bad. I want my credit for starting the triplet flow, but I also want my credit for gangster music and lean, kind of disgruntled, mad, angry uncle who's like, That is the position I tried to take on that song. And I tried to put little bits of English education all throughout the album. If anybody listens to the album and has some thoughts about it, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to ask some of the general questions, and I can answer those as well, no problem. But I would love to hear, you all's thoughts and opinions on what you thought about it, what you heard, and what you took away from it.
I texted you earlier this week about the first sample on the album.
Yeah.
What was the first sample on Code of Colors? Code of Many Colors.
Anita Baker, A Perfect Love Affair.
Anita Baker, see?
Yes. That's like a song I've heard growing up in my household since forever, right? And I've always wanted to use it, but I knew how to do it tastefully. And I was thinking about how I wanted to start the album. I wanted to start the album basically hinting at I'm about to go, right? I'm about to leave the South. But I also wanted to start the album with saying, like, I understand my walk in life, my healing journey, my growth with God. I understand where I'm at, right? Well, perfect. What better song to do that than with Perfect Love Affair, Anita Baker, right? And let her sing in the background. Let her do most of the heavy lifting, and I'm just rapping like a maniac over it, right? So I looked at you about that one. That's one of my favorite songs. Pretty cool to me.
Biggest thing is the coat of many colors a reference to Joseph of the Bible?
Yes,
so how does that incorporate into the song?
Yes, it is. It's just about like, you know, the story is like, you know, he had this coat and, you know, people were jealous of it. His brothers were jealous of the coat that he was given, right? But it's using that as like, you know, this is protection. You know, this is my coat, you know, and kind of like using it as a sense of even if you're jealous, even if you're whatever, I know who I am. I'm walking in my purpose. I had this for a reason. You know, I have this gift for a reason. I have this gift of right for a reason. So no matter what anybody from the outside is saying, I'm going on my walk with God, you know, and kind of ignoring the outside of it, right? Knowing that it's there, you know, in the song I'm talking about the troubles and the tribulations that might arise, but still saying I'm laser focused on what I'm here to do.
You touched on it a little bit, but when I was listening to the album, I felt like there was a lot of soul influence and jazz influence.
Yeah.
What was some of the music that you were listening to when you were making it? Like, was it just a lot of rap music, or
Yeah.
was it a lot of that type of music also?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I tried to combine a lot of it, right? So this is a time in my life where I was trying to be peaceful as possible. So I was listening to a lot of instrumentation, a lot of like two-step days, then like trying to calm myself before writing, right? But I also know I wanted to be southern as possible. So I was listening to a lot of old southern rap, a lot of UGK, a lot of Outkast, a lot of old Lil Wayne, trying to embody the spirit of that, right? But also like Bankroll Fresh and Future and, you know, Gucci Mane, like combining it all sides of the rap spectrum and trying to find where I fit into that. And it was a lot of soul as well too. Block Chevy Dreams, I found this beautiful Ben Taper song. It was like a cover of a Stevie Wonder song, and I played it over and over and over and over again. And when I get in that bag, I'm like, okay, this is gonna get sampled. I don't know how, but like I've played it 27 times, so I know I want to do it. So I kind of combined all of those things for the album.
I was gonna ask how you chose like the sequencing of the songs, and if there was any like intentionality involved.
Extremely. That is one of the like hardest parts of an album to me, but also the most rewarding, right? Because you want to make an album that sounds good front to back, that it seems seamless, right? But like I was saying earlier, I'm a big fan of storytelling. Something that Kendrick does very well is every album storytelling. It makes sense from start to finish, right? So I'm trying to, while I was writing, I was like, dang, I already had a song like that. Or I already talked about this before. So I don't want to, you know, give them the same story twice. I'm trying to tell a different story within every song and kind of combine it together, you know. And because of that, because it was my most intentional project, it's probably the most I've ever wrote for an album. It's only 13 songs, but I probably recorded 50, 60 songs, wrote 70, 80, trying to like make it the most intentional and flow together in the story, right? I'm trying to tell the story of like going with God throughout my tribulations and at the same time leaving the past behind, at the same time leaving where I'm at behind, you know, not only personally but physically, and running straight to that. So it took a lot, but it was very rewarding.
Over how long, like, of a time span would you say it took for you to come up with this album and carry it out from like concept to like publishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually at the end of an album, I kind of already know what I want to do, right? I'm kind of like, yeah, I've lived with the album previous for so long that I'm almost over it in a sense. I'm ready to do the next thing. So at the start of January 2024, I was working like on 5 different projects at the same time, trying to put this concept together. I knew I wanted to do something about the South, but I didn't know how to fully execute it, because I just throwing stuff at the wall. And so one of my good friends like stopped me and was like, hey, you're driving yourself crazy. Like, you're doing 5 albums at the same time. Nobody's telling you to do that but you. And as soon as I like stopped that, probably like a month later, I made the first version of Bad Boys Reprise. It's a song called Make It Home, the first version of that. And I was like, okay, I got something. I got something that's Southern, that's rapping, that's talking about what I've got going on. This is perfect. And that was probably July 2024. And I kind of just sharpened that until March 2025. So if you want to say when I first started writing it, January 2024 to March 2025, but when I really had the concept and what I wanted to do, it's probably better to say July 2024 to March 2025. So give or take 9 months to a year.
And how often would you say like you? I feel like 2 questions here, like percentage, like how much do you make and how much do you actually put out? Would you say?
Yeah.
And also how many times do you end up revising or reusing anything that you never like did?
Wow. You always want to make more, right? You always want to make an excess of music because you never know, those ideas might come back to you, right? So like I said, I made 13 songs on the album. It's actually a part one of the album. So the part two comes out and there's going to be 10 songs that come with that, but there's probably at least 30 other songs that was written and recorded to be made, right? So you want to write until you can't write anymore. That's how I view the album in the writing process, right? When I have nothing left to say, that's when I'll stop. And when I got to the point where I looked up and I was like, I keep saying the same thing, I think I'm done. That's when I put the pen down and said, okay, I have nothing left to say. So, and definitely the point about ideas coming back, that's one of my favorite things about writing, period. There's a couple songs on here I rewrote multiple times. Box Chevy Dreams was written a couple times. Get Free was written a couple times. Bad Boys Reprise was written a couple times. Warfare was written a couple times. You have version one, you live with that, you grow, and you know, sometimes you get better as an artist. And I'm better than this. I'm better than I was 2 months ago. I want to try it again. Or sometimes you, for me personally, it's like, it didn't fit the storyline of what I was trying to say earlier. I need to rewrite it so it fits the story, you know? But pushing yourself to those limits is how you make a great body of music.
Which song on the album you feel like gave you the most difficulty to like, because you really wanted it to be on the album?
Like the most difficult to make?
Yeah.
Whew, great question, hard-hitting question. I want to say between Zay Said and Get Free. Just because of the context of what I'm rapping about. Probably Get Free. Get Free, I heard this song, it's a UGK song, it's the last song on UGK's album, Riding Dirty. And throughout the whole song, he's just shouting out people that he's hung out with, let's say that. People he's hung out with in the album. And I love the instrumental. I was like, dang, he just talked on this instrumental for 9 minutes, so why didn't he rap on it? So I heard it, and I got my friend Gianni to loop it up for me, and I sat with that for months on months on months on months. Frustrated that I couldn't write to it, right? So then I sped it up. And once I sped it up, I was like, oh man, I got something going here, but I still couldn't put the words on paper, right? It wasn't until I gave it to my other friend. I was like, I had this idea, I've been filming for 6-7 months, can you please help me? And he put the drums and all that on it. I was like, oh, you have saved my life. So that was probably the most difficult one in terms of like creation. And Kendrick has this point, he was talking to Timothy Chalamet about like, you know, you make an album and sometimes on an album there's a song that you need people to get to. If you don't listen to nothing else, listen to this song. And that is this song, Let's Get Free. So that was Get Free.
What do y'all think of that? Like, as you had a chance to hear Israel talk about it, what do you think he means by get free? What do you think? There's a lot of drama in the song, right? You don't think about the drama in the song initially, especially like you're describing it from the UK record. It reminded me a little bit of when we listened to David Banner, Mississippi, where he kind of has that like, and then he kind of ends it too. So what do y'all think about it?
I like how many like different styles of rap you use in one song.
Yeah.
Like there's parts where it's like aggressive, and then there's parts where it like has that like alien-ish Kendrick type of sound to your voice.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah. That was definitely intentional. I was trying to put as many of my influences possible in the song. So I was saying that's the song that like I need people to listen to, you know, like even the take it away, like that's heavily from like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, you know, like I just like kind of took that and put that there, you know, so that was, I tried to put as much, you know, there's gospel in there, you know, I tried to put as much as I could into that song, so trying to put as many different raps out was definitely the point of that.
This one was definitely my favorite on the album, and I wanted to ask, like, I really loved the hook you kind of had of like 6 million ways to die, choose one, and then the only a fool run when you know Jesus is coming, and this idea of like death being freedom, and all these references you had, even like the really, you know, the Allah one in the beginning, and I would say, like, I wanted to ask, thinking of Get Free, what role do you think like any type of spirituality for you has when you write, when you
Yeah.
say these things?
Yeah, no, that's like the thing that's driving me. That's the thing that's in the driver's seat, and I'm just on the passenger letting it take me where it wants to take me, right? So the 6 million ways to die, that's been used many times. Capital Steve's used that, many rappers have used that, right? So when I was saying it, when I was freestyling, outlining the song, that part kept coming to me. I was like, I don't know why, but like I know I'm have to say this somewhere throughout the song. So once I had that, it was like, how can I continue the rhyme scheme of that? And when we get to the only a fool run, Jesus is coming. Like that's me more so. I'm trying to get free, right? I'm trying all these different things to get free, right? Religion, spirituality, drugs, alcohol, trying to get free of the shackles that I place upon myself. So that line is kind of ironic in the sense of like, only a full run when your salvation is coming, right? But salvation looks like so many different things for so many other people, right? I don't try to put it in a box, right? Spirituality means so many different things to so many other people. There's not one right answer. So it's kind of like I'm just trying to get free through only this one thing, only a full run, only I would be sad when I know I'm saved. It's kind of also putting some bit of irony in the verse as well, and you can find that all throughout the album. Like, what does that mean to me? What does go with God mean to me? What does my spiritual journey mean to me? Is it this or is it that? And then we get to a point in the album where I think it's whatever I want it to be, and get free is how we get there. Get free is how I break free of the shackles that I'm out placed upon myself, families placed upon me. It's whatever I decide to me.
I was gonna ask the same exact question about I was gonna ask where you got it from because I hear 6 million ways to die, choose one a lot.
Yeah.
In rap. So I'm
Yeah.
just wondering where you specifically got inspired by it.
Yeah, Capital Steve's was one of the first people I've heard say it. My mom had this really weird, like thrift shop rapper that we don't know who he is. Me and my sister still trying to find him to this day, and he says it, and we would run around the house singing all the time. So I had that in my brain already. I wish I could find him. I haven't been able to find him to this day. So those two things are probably where I heard it the most. And yeah, when I was outlining it, that refrain kept coming to me, and I was like, this is my time to say it now. So it ended up working out.
I have 2 questions. First, what is your favorite part of the album creation, sort of songwriting process? And then, have you ever encountered a writer's block when writing, and how do you deal with that?
Wow, great question. My favorite part of the songwriting process would be, and I've seen Earl Sweater talk about this, when the lyrics all connect and make sense to you, right? Because when I give the work to the world, it's whatever you think it is. It'll be whatever your interpretation is what it is, right? But when I'm writing, I was like, this line makes sense with this line, that line makes sense with this line. Even if I'm speaking in code, which is my favorite thing to do. Like, I know what this means. You might not know what it means, but I know what it means. That is my favorite thing, when it all lines up and I put it out. I would love to see what you thought it meant. Because for me, it meant this totally weird thing, right? We hear the 6 million ways to die and we think of Capital Steve, but I heard it from this crazy thrift rapper that nobody ever knows, right? It meant that to me, but it might have meant something totally different to you. So that's probably my favorite part. And writer's block, I don't get writer's block a lot anymore because I write so much. I'm just constantly writing, whether it be in the shower, whether it be when I'm watching a movie, whether it be listening to other songs and rapping over the beat. My brain is always constantly thinking of raps because I rapped for so long. But when I have encountered writing blocks, or what I tell people to do is I consume other forms of media or other art, or I try to do something new, right? So I would challenge anybody who does, if you rap, whatever, make a beat and be bad at it. If you make a beat, rap and be bad at it, right? If you've done something for so long, if you have writer's block, it might be because you're a great writer, you don't know what else to say, right? You've gotten to this point of not knowing where to go, So be bad at something. Let yourself be bad and learn from that and take the gems that you get from that, and it might unlock a door into what you really want to do, right? I started making beats this summer, and it was just loops. And it was the most fun I ever had because I was, is this good? Is this bad? I don't know what I'm doing. But it allowed me to open up new doors with my rapping and try to do new things there, So I would say that. Try to do new things when encountering writer's block.
So I know you said that you always knew you'd be a rapper, but I guess when you like first started, like do you have any doubt, especially like being from a small town where it's like I don't have like these connections, like can I make a name for myself? Or were you able to just like kind of do it naturally?
Yeah, I just stopped doubting about 2 weeks ago. I just stopped doubting. I made a mistake. I have always been rapping, but at first I played football. I played football, and that was my first love, right? So I had this real Troy Bolton moment of not knowing what I wanted to do, what I mean, right? So that's how it started for me. But rap eventually like just crept up and just like kept surpassing football in a sense. So I didn't always know I would be a rapper. I probably when I knew was when I saw how my work was impacting other people. I was probably around 22, where I knew I was good. I knew I made good music, right? But I didn't know how my work made people feel. It wasn't until 22 I made a whole album about like kind of grief. I called it Black Boys Don't Cry, and kind of just expressed like, you know, what I was dealing with. And I saw my father, my aunties, my mother, my sister, my brother, friends, people I didn't know, tell me how much the things I was saying meant to them. And then that's when I knew, okay, maybe I should like, you know, I need to take this even more serious than I am. But even with that, doubt comes, right? Because to believe in yourself, you have to be delusional. And sometimes you're in this isolated world by yourself, especially as a rapper, I'm the greatest rapper ever. And if nobody else is saying that to you, it's kind of hard to believe that, right? But it wasn't until very recently that I had to realize, you know, how much of it am I doing it for myself and how much of it am I doing for external validation, for other people to tell me I'm good, right? It's like, for instance, when I first started, I was pretty bad. But remember, you know, that next year, going at lunch and paying my best friend at the time, I would pay for his lunch just so he could rap battle me, right? And I know he didn't want to battle me because he knew I was better than him, but I was like, please battle me so I can show everybody how good I am, right? And then from there, that's where kind of my journey with external validation happened. But there's still so much doubt within that, right? If I really believed in myself, I wouldn't have had to do that, you know, and that's kind of built, and I'm just now kind of jumping out of that. So that's for anybody who's got a passion, whether it's art or whatever, you know, like do it for you. And if you're doing it and you're creating for yourself, whatever it might be, you're already successful, you know, despite what anybody else might have to say.
Do you ever have like, when you're doing a song that's like really deep and very personal to you, do you ever have a hard time putting the things that like make you feel vulnerable like on paper and into a song?
All the time. That's something I don't think I'll ever quite get over, right? Because it's hard to say the truth. No matter how many times you say it, right? You just kind of end up being comfortable with it after a while. I'll probably say Zay Said Get Free was hard to write because it took me so long. But Zay Said, in terms of the things I was saying, especially the third verse in that song, I mean, in that verse I say things I still can't bring myself to say. I make records that there's things I still can't put on wax now, you know? So it's hard to tell the truth, for people to judge you, because like I'm saying, you know, for me it's therapy, right? It's therapeutic to write. But when you give it to other people, that's when you invite people's opinions in, people's judgments in, you know, of your life, of your work. And it's hard to be like, you know, I'm going to be completely truthful with the good and bad things that I've done. But there's a certain amount of like liberation within that too. You know, I don't really care what you say, what you think or whatever. I needed to say it for me. And somebody relate to it. So I know me walking in my truth, it's not just for me, right? It's for the kid who's 12, 13, is going through the same thing. It's for the 15-year-old who wants to rap and doesn't know where to find rap, and he finds Israel Jones. And he listens to a song like a Zay Said or a Get Free, and that inspires him to write. And that can only happen if I'm being as truthful as possible. Yeah, you go first.
Kind of going back to sampling, like what does it mean to you to be able to like sample and reference songs that you grew up with?
Oh, that's everything. That's everything. Like my mom loves Anita Baker. So me playing that first song, she's like, why would you know about this? It's like, I only played it for me every day. Like obviously I know about the song. So it means everything. It like heals my childhood in a sense too. So like bring stuff that I grew up listening to and then put it on like where I'm at right now. But it's also nice to find like new things, like the Box Chevy Dream sample I haven't heard, and I fall in love with that as if I'm a child, like when you first find your favorite artist, and then I get to use that to get in and put out to the world. So it means everything, honestly, to be able to take stuff that you listen to, that you grew up with, and now that I'm older, I know how to use it in an artistic way.
I was gonna ask, with all these samples, how do you deal with clearance?
Yeah.
We'll find out. Next episode of Dragon Ball Z, we'll find out how that goes. Yeah, that's a tricky game. Honestly, I wouldn't let anybody stop me from putting out my music. You know, if you gotta get what you gotta get, you gotta get it. But something that really helped me, this is a funny story, something that helped me be more confident with is, I don't know if anybody listens to Babytron. He has this song where he sampled the theme song of Everybody Gets Cursed. I was like, okay, there's no way you got that cleared. I'm going to do what I want to do, you know? So, yeah, we'll just deal with that whenever that comes. Maybe it's like the smartest idea, but, you know, music is music, you know? If Anita Baker hears a song, I feel like I won. You know what I mean? If Anita Baker wants to make from the song, that means she heard the song, and I take that as a win any day. Yeah.
How many drafts in a song would you say you do before you decide that that's the version that it?
Like before I record it or after?
After you're recording it.
After I record it, how many drafts do I do? It depends. Like I was saying, a big part of my creative process is repetition. So before I go to the studio, I pretty much want the song memorized in my head, right? I've done it 100 times, so recording it now is the easy part. So sometimes it's just one take. A lot of these, every song on here, I did in one take. Not as in like the first take, but like I went through and did it the whole time. Like I didn't stop for a chorus or stop to punch in, like it was all one continuous take, right? And maybe that's not the smartest thing in the world either, but I find it makes it more authentic to do it like that instead of having to start and stop my music, right? So because that is the case, a lot of times after the first version, I've done it 101 times, you know, I don't need to go back and do it a lot, but it kind of depends what I was saying earlier, like maybe if I did this song in September 2024, right? But now it's February 2025, I'm a better person and artist than I was then. So maybe I listen to it and I'm like, what was I talking about? And then I go through and redo it. So it kind of just, it's circumstantial. It kind of just depends.
I feel like with Get Free, like listening and hearing like the Red Hot Chili Peppers like influence was like really like, pleasant. Like I was like, ooh, like that's nice. So like, what other like genres of music kind of like inspire you to like put out stuff or like involve like that kind of like rockish like vibe? Because like growing up with Red Hot Chili Peppers and like rap and hip hop and stuff, like hearing those kind of combined, it's like the Jay-Z and Linkin Park of that.
Yes.
So it's like things like that were just like it's such a good mix.
Yes.
And it's like what inspired you to kind of incorporate those different vibes into like songs like Get Free or any other kind of song?
Oh, it's just what I grew up listening to. You know, like I did a lot of talking about how my dad played rap all the time, but I would hop in the car and hear John Mayer.
Mm-hmm.
I would hop in the car and hear Prince, and maybe be too young to truly understand it, but I was being thrown so much music, right? And then I hop into the car with my mom and we're listening to nothing but gospel music all day long. So kind of having all those different kind of things in this gumbo of melting pot or whatever shows up in my music. To where like Get Free is a bunch of different rapping styles, but it's also singing, it's also gospel influence, not just in like the language, but the way I'm trying to sing, right? But it's also like the Red Hot Chili Peppers of it. I love that kind of like aggressive, like shake your head music, like I like all of that, you know? So how can I find a way to make it into this gumbo? Because music is universal, right? This goes back to the original point that this is bigger than any box you try to put it in. There's so many things that go into what this song is, right? But somebody can hear it and just be like, oh man, you're a lyricist. But there's so many other things that went into this outside of me just writing raps, you know? So.
Out of all the locations that you wrote at, which one was your favorite, but also which one was like the most beneficial to the writing process?
That's a great question. The one that was most beneficial was probably at my home. Like I went from Tallahassee, I was there for 5-ish or so years, and I thought I was gonna go from Tallahassee to New York, and life said, no, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna go home first. So when I went home, like I was saying, I spent many days in the grass, in the sun, with my mom's food, outside, you know, and it just allowed for the album to come way more naturally that way, you know. Every other album that I made was in the midst of chaos, you know, in the midst of being away from home, being in a different environment that wasn't like productive or conducive, and really the only way to feel like I could survive was to write. Versus this album, it was like peace. It was like a big giant hug. You don't have to be so scared anymore. You can just write whatever you want to write. You're around nothing but like peace and calm. And that's how you get an album like this. My favorite place that I wrote though probably would have to be either Atlanta or Tallahassee. Maybe just Atlanta because I don't like frequent there a lot, so being able to do something in a new place was not nice. But when I went back to Tallahassee, after the album was pretty much done, I had a lot of sessions with like my friends, which is nice when you're creating too, to do it with other people, you know? And they were in the room and we actually made all the beautiful things like that. In Tallahassee, just in a room, having fun, laughing, and putting it together. That's probably my favorite moment from that process.
Why are you in New Jersey now? What is the game plan?
Oh man, I'm trying to make it. For as much as I love Florida, as much as I love the South, it was time to go. It's time to change, you know, not just for my personal life. I feel like I've done everything that I could do to grow here, but also as an artist, specifically in the games and music scene, I kind of felt like big fish in a small pond at times, you know? So when you reach that level and you believe in yourself, then like, what are you gonna do? Am I gonna sit here and complain about it, or I'm gonna try to find a bigger pond? So that's the game plan, and I knew that was the game plan in the midst of making the album, and I couldn't see how I was gonna get there, what I was gonna do, which is another big part of the album. Like I want to do something new, but how do I do it? And it's not to the end where I realize how it's gonna work out.
When you like started like really recording music, like did you face any challenges with like writing or with recording or anything that you like wouldn't have expected?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, at first I was bad. So it took a while for me to look at my page and like really understand how to encompass everything I was saying earlier, right? Because I was a smart kid, right? But how can I put all the things that I know down on paper? I'm only 12. So like I think I know a lot, but I don't know as much as I think I do, right? So that was challenging, putting all my big ideas onto paper and making them make sense. So I would have this giant idea and then write it, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But really just through repetition of writing it over and over and over again and getting comfortable with it, doing it a lot. I had a lot of like English teachers who poured into me who would tell me to go up and perform in front of the whole class, which is very nerve-wracking, but it made me more comfortable in what I was writing could be heard, right? It's not just me, you know, like people want to listen to me rap. And with recording, you know, I recorded when I first started recording when I was 12, so I sounded like a pipsqueak. I sounded like a little kid, and I really hated that. You know, there was nothing worse than being 13 and feeling like I'm a grown up and listening to myself. It's like, why do I sound like a child? You know? So it took a while to get comfortable with my voice. And it's the same with writing, you know, it only comes with repetition. The more I did it, the more I worked on it, the more I practiced it, the more I got comfortable with my writing, and the more I got comfortable with how I sound too. You got a question?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, did you work with just one producer throughout the album? And then also, how do you link with producers? What is that part of the process?
Great question. I work with multiple producers. I worked with Johnny Bosquet, who me and him did the Sunshine on the Song together. I worked with Who Did It. We did Good Time together. So these are people who are my friends who I've met through music. So they did a good amount on the album, but there's a lot of people who will send you stuff, right? Who will send you beats. And sometimes it's hard to keep track of everything, but I like music, you know, and I like to give everybody a chance. So when people send me beats, when they send me instrumentals, I really listen to them. So it was a couple of those on there where it was people who I never met but have sent me stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to use that. And I actually got a chance to work with my biggest producer today. I don't know if you know Thelonious Martin. He produced Back Home with A$AP Rocky. He's done some work with G Herbo and Mac Miller. And he reached out to me. He found my music through a mutual friend. And he reached out to me. He actually did 3 Rivers and On Behalf of the South. So it's kind of, I don't know, a combination of things. You know, it's people who I trust, you know, friends in real life. It's, you know, me taking a chance on people, you know, sending me stuff. And it's also just like allowing miracles to happen. I couldn't have, you know, DM'd him or asked for that or like predict that to happen. It kind of just like fell in my lap, you know. It's kind of a mix of all 3 coming together.
How do you decide who you want to feature?
Great question, because I don't like people rapping on me, on my songs, they can't rap. So that's what I'm still trying to figure out, right? Because I do like collaborating. It's this weird thing of like, there's so many producers on the album, that's collaboration, right? But the album is a story, and I need the album to follow a storyline. And sometimes somebody get in your song and talk about nothing, and now we've thrown the whole train off, right? So I really try to use it with discernment, and when it comes to rapping, that one is definitely more so of people that I know, right? Producing, it could be a mix of things. Rapping on my song is like, I know you, and you know me, and you know what I want from your song. So the only person I had rapping was Boma, his real name is Trent, at the end of the song. And we're part of the same collective. So that was the day where I wrote with all my friends in the room, right? I'm around all my friends, they know me, I'm comfortable. We pull up the beat, yeah, let's rap on a song together. That was easy to do, right? I'm not the best at sending my music off for somebody else to rap, so they might not understand what I'm trying to do, but somebody like him is able to understand. So that I'm a little bit more, on the money with. There's a lot of singing on the album, like background vocals. And that's also the same, somebody who I know if I give it to them, I don't have to tell them what to do. They'll just do it, so. It's more discernment when it comes to featuring than producing. Definitely. Myles.
I grew up thinking all rappers were friends.
Right.
And so like when they would be on the same song, I thought like part of the writing process was happening cooperatively. How often is that like a part of your rapping process?
Like writing with somebody else together?
Like when you worked with Trent?
Yeah, no, that's definitely what it was. We're playing the beat out loud. I might write 4 to 8 bars. I see him over there writing. And it's a little competitive too, like I want to make sure like, this person doesn't come and kill me in my own song. Right. So I'm over there like writing, like thinking like, ooh, how's it going? And then like every 10 or 15 minutes stopping and being like, what you got? And feeding off of each other like that. Giving us enough room to work competitively and creatively, but not leaving so much room that you record and we both saying separate things, right? Checking in periodically, rap your verse. Ooh, that was tough, that was hard. Ooh, yours was tough, that was hard. Kind of giving us that validation as well while you're writing, right? Sometimes when you're writing, doubt can creep in, like, is this good? Am I off beat? But having somebody there to like, checks and balances to be like, nah, what you're writing is actually perfect is incredible, And then Trent, he's such a live wire, he'll just say things, right? He'll just say random things that inspire me specifically on all the beautiful things, He was saying, he had quoted this Earl Sweatshirt song. And I forgot the line that I said in all the beautiful things. But he had said the line, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write that down right now, He had referenced one of our old songs. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write that down right now. So having that energy with somebody who's talking to you, speaking life into you, throwing ideas at the wall is gonna make for a better song. Definitely.
I feel like the way you mentioned that, like whenever like you're writing lyrics, you can be like rapping over a beat or like watching a movie. But like, what gets you? Like, if you do, like, what do you ever do something that gets you in the headspace to write, or you just happen naturally to flow? Like, what gets those creative juices flowing for you?
I'm a little bit. I don't want to say a madman, but like if I'm not rapping, I don't feel good. Like I like writing consistently. Rapping is a part of my like daily routine. I like to get up, walk, and rap. After I get off for work, I want to make sure I rap. So nothing really has to get me in the mood. I just don't want to feel like I'm not doing my job. Because it's like my career at this point. It's what I love dearly at this point. So like, why not pour into that? There's no limit on how much I can rap. Nobody's knocking at my door like, hey, you rap too much today. I can do that for as long as I want, how many times I want, as many days as I want. And I always feel better as an artist and as a person when I do that,
My music, like, I don't even know what it sounds like, the studio version sounds like. And I think that's interesting because, like, I don't make music, but I feel like if I made a song and I'm like, oh, this is really good, like, I really like this, like, sometimes you don't like, listen to that.
Yeah, I'm the biggest Israel Jones fan in the world. Yeah, I'm listening to my music. I understand what they mean, though, because in the creation process of an album, you're listening to it all the time. And a lot of the times, at least for me, you're listening to it for mistakes, right? I didn't say this ad-lib right. I didn't do this verse correctly. You're listening for something that's wrong in the music and constantly over, So once you get it to a point where you feel like there's no mistakes, you're done with it. I don't want to hear it no more. I've listened to it too much, right? But the cool thing about this last album is that when I was writing it, when I was listening to it, it became less about what am I not doing and more about I really like what I'm saying. So I would play it a lot more, right?
It's like the mindset.
Yeah, it's like a little mindset shift, right? Unfortunately, since the album's come out, I have not got a chance to really play it. I've been so busy trying to do things, I haven't got a chance to like listen to it. And every time I try, something happens, right? I tried to listen to it on the plane and I fell asleep. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, I got it. And I fell asleep again. So I'm trying to, hopefully today or tomorrow, I'll be able to fully listen to it and like listen to it from top to bottom. But I do understand the plight of I sat with this for so long it's mine. And that's the other part of it, right? When it's yours on your phone, it's yours. And once you give it to the world, it's not yours anymore, right? So you can love this song and then give it to somebody else and they hate it. And that can kind of influence the way you listen to your own music. I definitely understand that. That's a great question.
So I like really love the whole like message about like loving the South but like leaving the South.
Yes.
It's like personally like I'm born and raised in the South and I like never want to leave. I love it here, but
Yeah.
like also I get like sometimes you have to like branch out to like go far in life.
Right.
So like I was wondering like if you had like gone a different route in life, like if you hadn't decided to rap, like do you think you would have ended up staying in the South?
That's a great question. Maybe, right? Rap is such a vessel, it's such this huge thing in my life, right? That by me rapping, I was able to see so many different ways my life would go, right? So many doors opened up for me personally once I started rapping. So if I didn't rap, maybe those doors wouldn't have opened up for me. What would be the reason of me going to New Jersey? You know, why would I go to New York if I wasn't like rapping just to be there? Like, that's cool, but like, you know, I was born and raised here as well. You know, my family's from, all my generational lineage is from the South. You know, that's all we know. You know, so I'm like one of the first people to leave the South, you know, in my entire bloodline and do something different. You know, so that's a good question. I don't think I would have. If I wasn't rapping, I probably would still be here.
This is like kind of to do with that, but I'm like curious as to how attending an HBCU such as FAMU like contributed to your growth and success, and also like what you were involved in.
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first got to HBCU, I still believed I was going to the NFL. That did not happen. So when I got there, I was still training, you know, trying to play college football, right? But I knew I could rap. And being at the school that I was at PK Young, I would be the only one listening to certain types of music, right? I'd feel insane telling people about Isaiah Rashad, and I'm like, I don't know who that is, you know? So when I got to FAMU, my number one goal was like, where are the artsy people? Where are the people who listen to the music I listen to? And I joined a poetry org. And within that organization, I had somebody who kind of took me on as a mentee and let me come to his dorm and record for free and poured so much life into me. And at that time, I thought I was the best rapper in the world too. Even though I'm doing it half the time, nobody can rap better than me. And I heard him rap, and I was like, somebody's rapping better than me. So that made me want to get better. And then the people in the organization at the time poured into me, right? I was still nervous. You know, I had this ego that I'm the best, but I was still nervous to do it. And it wasn't until one workshop where I rapped. They were trying to find like a rapper for a performance, and I did my rap. And they were like, we're going with you. Why didn't you say something, you know, to start off, you know? So having experiences like that, we would have like freestyle Fridays around campus where I would just take the microphone and just rap and say I'm the best versus everybody, right? Having the different type of outlets and avenues around the campus, right? Whether it be different performance venues, that's a 10-minute walk, an open mic, that's a 5-minute walk, right? Having that around kind of forced me to do it more often, which helped me believe that I am who I thought I was. You know? So it was a huge part in my rap, you know, discovery. I was gonna go somewhere and walk on and play football. You know, my whole life would have went a whole different way if I would have went to, you know, JU to play football versus going to FAMU and being a rapper.
Outside of like the influences of like from rap and hip hop, is there a writer, poet, author that you gravitate towards that has influenced you?
That's a great question. Zora Neale Hurston. Love Zora Neale Hurston. You know, Florida girl, you know, I love her works, you know, What It Is to Be Colored Me, I think that's the name of it. I love that, you know, her basically being like, you're discriminating, I don't even know why you're discriminating against me, I love me, you know, like, the fact that somebody could not like me is appalling to me, I'm great. You know, making it more than about race, like, I'm great, despite of what, you know, my race might say, I love me, you know. And then like her story is so ill to me, right? When she was alive, her work not being as celebrated as it is now, you know? And it wasn't until Alice Walker was like, hey, where is like she buried? You know, like this great writer doesn't even have a name like on her gravestone, you know? And then people going back to her work and seeing all the gems that was in it. So big fan of Zora Neale Hurston, big fan of Toni Morrison, big fan of James Baldwin. And even outside of writing, I'm a huge fan of Gordon Parks, photographer. He did a great job of capturing Black life in a time where it needed to be captured. So all those kind of that's a great question. All those references go into the way that I write, especially the poets, because they go hand in hand, like I was saying earlier. Like, so studying their work makes me a better rapper. It's a great question.
Super random and like not one of the deep questions. Do you ever have a thought of like how long you want a song to be? Like I know on the album you had like an over 4 minute song and you had another one that was less than a minute.
Yeah.
Is that ever like an intention that you set when you write, or is it just like how it comes out?
It's just how it comes out. Sometimes recently when I've been writing, I will like challenge myself, because if it was up to me, every song would be like 10 minutes. Like this how much I want to say. Or recently I've been challenging myself to be like, how can I say so much in so little time, right? A song's a minute 30 seconds. How can I say everything I need to say, but then it's a minute 30 instead of like dragging it out? It also depends on the beat. If the beat is a long beat, I can always like shorten it. But like I said, I like to hear what the producer was saying, right? If the producer made a 5 minute, 6 minute song, he probably wants me to really talk about something on here, right? If he made a 1 minute song, if the song is this long, he probably wants something more quick and sporadic and maybe upbeat. So let me try to like match the energy of that. So it kind of depends on the producer. And it kind of just how it goes, but I do enjoy putting a lot into a little. That makes sense. Yes.
How do you know when you're done with the song to kind of just put it down instead of kind of keep on tweaking it?
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really difficult to know when it's finally complete.
Yeah, it's a little annoying, definitely. Kind of what I was saying earlier, when I have nothing else to say, right? If I write and I write and I write and I kind of sculpt it, I freestyled it, I outlined it, I've done repetition. That is a tedious process. It's a process that I fell in love with, but it's tedious, right? And I know it's one I could trust. So after that process, if I've gotten through that and I have nothing else to say, I know I have nothing else to say. Because I've freestyled over this beat 50 times, and I've written over it for 50 times, and I've gone over it this much. If I have nothing less to say after this song is done, at least for now. And maybe as life grows later on, like I was saying earlier, maybe perspective changes and I'll go back and tweak it. But that process that I have is a trusted one. So once I get to the end of that, I know I'm probably done with the song. Yeah.
Did you choose to major in English to help with rapping? Because you mentioned that you started young.
Yeah.
And if not, was there a point in time while you were pursuing the major that you realized that you wanted to use what you learned from it to better your skills as a rapper?
That's a great question. When I first applied to FAMU, I actually didn't want to go. Like I said, I thought I was going to go to the NFL. So I was applying, sending my highlight tape to colleges with no response. So big tongue out moment, yes. So I ended up applying to FAMU and I got in and I was just so, lethargic about it. I really didn't care. At first I chose my major to be business. I don't know nothing about business, but that was the first thing I chose, right? Because it felt like the logical answer. And it wasn't until about 2-3 days later I was like, that is the worst mistake I could ever make right now. I don't like math. What am I doing? So I was like, what is the thing that I've liked all throughout high school? And even when I had difficult teachers, I always liked English. There was an English teacher who told me, you should rap. You should continue to do this, right? Those are the people who poured into me. So I was like, well, let me do English. And my time studying English was a strange one, right? Because I loved writing. But at HBCU, I thought I'd be learning more about the Toni Morrises of the world, the James Baldwins of the world when I was in the class, learning the curriculum. But, I was required to take 2 Shakespeare courses. And I like Shakespeare. Yeah, exactly. Big eye roll. I like him more now. I can appreciate his work more now, from a writing standpoint. But even the teacher in the class would point out the irony in us being required to take 2 Shakespeare classes, but not required to learn about any other Black authors. So I kind of had a moment with that. But you're absolutely right. As I got a little bit older and started to realize, the more I take my English classes serious, the better rapper I am. When I first started school, I wasn't this good, and I go to school every day, and I'm in class every day. There has to be a correlation here. I'm doing all this reading, doing all this academic writing, and I'm using Split Butterfly to talk about, English in my class. There has to be some kind of way that these two are mixing. So it took a little bit of time, but probably around my last year of college, I really understood how much they mended together.
How did you go about networking at all? How'd you go about doing the like nitty gritty after you made the song?
Yeah, like in terms of like putting it out.
I feel like it's like I guess two questions of like who did you meet to like get yourself, like you even mentioned collective, like how does any of that come from just you making the song yourself?
Right. I think just being at the right place at the right time, you know, and like trusting that the music will do what it's supposed to do, right? Once you put it out, it's not yours anymore, and it can travel to places you never knew. Like I had no idea he was listening to my music, right? I had no idea he was playing my music, right? It travels to places that you don't understand. So me doing that consistently allowed me to find my collective, knowing who I was, hearing my work, and me understanding their work and appreciating it as well, right? And putting it out to me, like, you know, we're talking about writing and like the creation of it, but putting your work out, I think, is also a part of the art as well, right? When you think about Kendrick, when you think about Lil Wayne, when you think about some of the biggest artists, you also think about their eras, right? What were they doing to promote the album that you saw as well? I think all of that is a part of the creation process that I try to keep in mind, right? What am I not saying? What am I saying, you know, through the art, you know, vocally, but also when you see it, what are you seeing, right? Like the Got My Heart video, right? I'm trying to tell the story in multiple different ways that the listener or reader, whatever, can take on.
Oh, sorry. I just had like a kind of a goofier question. Do you have like a least favorite rapper? So when you just like don't.
Ooh, man, you trying to start beefing here. Least favorite rapper.
Or like album.
Ooh, you know what? I can give you my least favorite like rap archetype. I really don't like fast rap. I really don't like rap. I really don't. I don't. It's just not like super listenable to me. Like I can respect the skill of it, but on my day to day, it doesn't like really click with me all the time. And I don't like. I don't know. I don't like rap that's like too. I don't want to say too on the nose, but it's like it might seem pointless to me. You know, like I don't know if anybody knows like Tom McDonald. I'm not listening to you, man. Like I'm not listening to Dax. Like I'm not listening to you, the Hobsons of the world. Like don't like you're overly preaching to me. What are you talking about? Like I could do without that. So those will probably be my least favorite types of rap for sure. Sorry, Tom McDonald. I really
He's talking about.
It's not important.
I just wanted to kind of jump in, and I kind of want to play "Got My Heart" because we listened to it on Tuesday, and then I don't think everybody was in the room when Israel said that song is actually like a breakup kind of song to Florida.
Yeah.
And so I want to listen to it and play it because I think I'm always thinking about y'all as going through your college careers, and by the time you reach my class, you're pretty close to graduating. And I think like you have to think about what this next phase of your life looks like, right? Is it staying around, or are you staying in Florida, are you staying in school? Well, how do you think about that next moment in your life? So I like this type of music, I guess, is to think about that. So I want to play this song and see if you see that, because we heard it. I thought it was a love song too, but it's a love song and a breakup letter to Florida. So I think we can listen to it.
I do, absolutely 100%. It makes me sad to know that I'm definitely gonna have to leave at some point with the way that things are going in this state.
Right.
It's a little heartbreaking, and there's things about it that I'll miss. But at the same time, you know, like I also do look forward to living somewhere other than Florida.
Right.
There's always gonna be a part of me here. I feel like I've had, you know, there's very few other places in the country where I was like, a person whose family is like from Latin, like Puerto Rican and Cuban. There's nowhere else really in the country where I'll be able to say like I've grown up with people who are mostly also Latinos as well.
Right.
There's other places, but
Right.
you know.
Right. No, I agree completely. That was a part of the reason I wanted to go to, you know, because I haven't seen anything outside of this, you know, like some of the stuff that you see in Florida shouldn't is it normal? You know, some of the stuff that you see like politically is a lot to kind of like just be okay. This was just Tuesday, you know, it was just Tuesday seeing this flag, you know, like I don't want to see that every day, you know. So I can understand that feeling, which is a part of the reason why I feel like I had to go as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love Florida too, but like she said, it definitely has its pros and cons. But I feel like I have always really felt that like people who don't like Florida don't truly know Florida. Like I feel like obviously it gets this like, people who aren't from here see it as like Disney World.
Right.
And like just something that it's not, like really not. And I also think people don't realize how beautiful Florida is either. Like it doesn't get a lot of appreciation for its how just like very beautiful and diverse its wildlife is. Like that's why I love Florida so much, is because like I grew up in an area where not so much anymore, but it used to be a lot of just like those pastures and trees, and like I love the swamps, but I love the beaches, and I just think it's really diverse and beautiful. But I think it sucks that it's not viewed that way by everyone, and that it also isn't always a place that is good for everyone, like she said.
Yeah. No, that was percent. When moving and people ask me about Florida, they're like, Florida man a real thing? I'm like, I mean, yes, but like, I mean, we got trees too, bro. It's not just that, like, it's not just that. So I can definitely understand like the negative stereotype that is around Florida, and that really bothered me when I was with here, right? Like, when I went to Tallahassee, so many people from South Florida made fun of me because I'm from Gainesville. It's like, oh, you from Gainesville? From Georgia? Like, it's still Florida, dog. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe we don't got pink houses like y'all do, or, you know, but like, it's still Florida, right? There's so many stereotypes about what, you know, some people don't even consider us the South, you know?
Yeah.
Florida is such an enigma within the music, within the people, within what's going on. It's its own place, right? So I definitely agree with that. I don't really want to hear the opinions about Florida if you're not from Florida.
And also I feel like anytime I've talked to people, I've noticed this a lot of people who like are from different countries, is like when I tell them I'm from Florida, it's always me, oh, Miami.
Miami, right?
Don't get me wrong, like Miami's great, but like no, like I feel like people just have like think that Florida is like one specific thing.
Right.
And like obviously like North Florida is not Miami.
Right, yes, exactly.
And so it's just so different, and like when people aren't from Florida, I just think they need to keep their mouths shut about what Florida is.
No, I agree. It's either Miami or Disney World, you know, or like when I tell people I'm from Gainesville, they immediately go, what's that? And I go, you know, the Gators, you know, University of Florida, and then like, okay, then they understand. So I definitely think it's, you know, just what's been shown. You know, when you think of Florida, you think of Miami, you think of the beaches, you think of Florida man, you know, you don't think of all the different intricacies within Florida, which is why I said from the start, you know, I just say I'm from North Florida. You know, I have so many different parts that I can relate to and say that I could call home, that I just, it all culminates into one thing, right? North Florida has its own culture too. A lot of people try to act like it doesn't have its own culture just because it's not South Florida. But there's a distinct difference between both, that I think both should be celebrated, and unfortunately it's not. I definitely can't.
I feel like re-listening to the song, like knowing the context, it makes like 10 times more sense as well. Like I'm from like South Florida, and coming to Gainesville for college, it was such like a cultural shock, because I'm used to like South Miami, where everything is something of such a huge like cultural melting pot, and I came up here and I was like, okay. Like this is the PWI for the most part, so like coming here was like a pretty big shock. So I kind of like listening to the song and then also like applying my own experiences from my own life. I feel like I can kind of resonate to it a lot more, despite like the romantic aspect of it.
Right.
Like going to like an own like life, like lived experience aspect. There's so, like you said, you can take whatever you want from a song, whatever like you apply to your own life. So like now understand that context, I can apply like more experience and more like thought processes to listening to the song.
Right, that's incredible. That's incredible, right? Because I think the song falls under the umbrella of just wanting to do something new, right? Like tired of saying the same things, right? Like I'm also telling the story of, if you listen to each state, like my maturity gets a little better, right? The Texas one, I'm just focused on one thing. The Atlanta one, it's a little bit different. It's not till I get to the Florida aspect where I kind of have more of a mature mindset of it, right? So I'm telling the story of growing up in the South, growing up in this place, right? Like my maturity level raising. And by the time I get to the chorus, it's like, yeah, I am where I want to be mentally, but I am not where I want to be physically around me. I have to do something new so those things can match each other. So you got my heart, I love you, my boy, but I'm gone. So I definitely can see that.
New Jersey in a lot of ways I feel like is culturally and geographically like as opposite of Florida
Yes.
as possible.
In every way.
So I know you said you've only been there a couple months,
Yeah.
but how do you think that impacts you and impacts the music?
It's been incredible because I'm rapping about new things, right? The same way that I said that, you know, growing up in Florida, the gold grills and the boiled peanuts and the 28 rims and all of this stuff is in my music. Now it's the train and it's the man that I see every day on the sidewalk. You know, it's the bodega that I'm now like a frequent customer at. It's spending my Sundays at the laundry place, you know, when I was used to having to wash and dryer in my crib. You know, it's having to take this train ride all the way to the Bronx and the Queens, and I'm seeing the things. So it's impacting the music in a different way, right? But there's also parts of Jersey that feel like home. They have a beach. It's not Florida.
A lot of beaches, yeah.
You know, but it's not. They have a beach there. You know, like they have grass. You know, that's I'm being like for real. Like you go to certain parts of New York, there's no grass, and that just like blows my mind. Like y'all don't have no trees here. But you know, in Jersey, they have grass. They have parks that you can like visit. So there is a piece of home that whenever I'm feeling a little homesick, I know okay, I can at least go here and feel like I'm where I'm from. So definitely the location has played a big part in the stuff that I've been writing recently.
Trace from Queens.
I'm in New York.
New York, oh, so you know
Not
what
too
I'm
much
talking
of
about.
New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like, I feel like you had a really original experience in terms of like you say you're from North Florida and it's like that kind of encompasses like you did a lot of things in a lot of different places in North Florida. I feel like the way she was saying like I grew up in Miami and I was so used to like Hispanic culture
Right.
in a place that it's like America's very like white and that's the center, but I didn't realize it until I got here, like to the point where like my freshman year someone entirely ignorantly, I had no ill against this person, was like, I told her I was Cuban and from Miami, she goes, where are you really from?
Right.
And I was like, my parents were born in Cuba, and she
Right.
was like, oh, so you're like off the raft, and I was like, oh,
Right.
I was like, I don't know if that's the term I'm gonna use, so I feel like every place kind of has, even if it's in Florida, it has its own like bubble.
Right.
So I feel like you weren't in that bubble, you were in a bigger one if anything.
Right.
So how do you feel like that connection of like, I can talk about Miami and South Florida, but I don't really have that connection to North Florida.
Yeah.
I can talk about Gainesville in the sense of UF and that bubble, but not in like a really full sense of like Florida or North Florida and how
Right.
it is. So how do you think that kind of impacts, like where you're from and what you do
Right.
impacts like your view of everything else that's also where you're from?
Oh, that's a great question. I think first is like knowing where you're from, right? Like knowing your history, knowing your background, right? To be able to explain to somebody who might ignorantly say something, you know? So learning from those experiences, right? Learning about North Florida, about the different things that make up North Florida, right? But I think it's also understanding that like everybody has their own kind of like bubble that they're in a sense. Where like when I went to New Jersey, I told people, yeah, I taught at FAMU. Nobody knew what it was. No teacher that I worked with knew maybe the second or third most popular HBCU, maybe by like Howard or Spelman. Nobody knew what it was, right? And being able to understand, but I know my location, right? So I'm able to educate them on that, right? So like the person who said that to you, it was very ignorant, but you were able to probably give them a little bit of education because you know your history and know your background, right? So I don't know if that answers your question completely, but just having a sense of knowing of like where I'm from, so where I'm able to give it to anybody, right? And making sure that's in the music as much as I can. Because I don't necessarily think I sound like a Florida rapper, but if you hear it, the first thing I'm saying is Florida. I'm from there. You know what I'm saying? I'm hitting you in the mouth with it. So definitely, that's a great question.
Two kinds of review.
I wanted to ask, like, cause I feel like I understand it's just hard, like, especially being in Gainesville, like, there's a big indie sleaze, like, emo even scene.
Yeah.
There's really not hip hop like anywhere, you know,
Right.
it's really not a thing, which is, you know, I totally understand that. Even thinking of Florida in general, like, you go very south, there's super Latin, you
Right.
go north, it gets really like folk and country,
Right.
and there's like a,
Yes.
like, where did Denzel, like, I don't even know where he was settling in, and so it's
Right.
like, and I wonder, like, if, as you're, like, leaving Florida, do you ever think of what it would be like to come back and change,
Change it?
you know, that scene?
All the time, man. All the time. You know, I don't know how old you are, but Gainesville actually did have a hip hop scene around 2, 3, 4 years ago, right? And I was like heavily in the middle, like the epicenter of that. And I watched it kind of fall off due to greed, right? Due to like people wanting a monopoly on it, right? People not understanding what they had, and watching a brain drain of sorts of all these people who had hip hop up, right? I performed at bars in Gainesville that were strictly, country folk bars, right? Like I'll give you like a story. I forgot the bar downtown, and I did my super political revolutionary raps, and I felt like nobody cared. I'm like, I know I did that good. Why did nobody care? The next performer was a dude who was on like 10-foot stilts in a cape and was just going like the whole time, and everybody was like, "Yes, give me more." I was like, "Okay, this is where I'm at, right?" But there was so much work done. I want to say in between 2020 to 2022 of homegrown hip hop artists changing that narrative, right? Which is why you might see bigger artists come to Gainesville now because there was a small light on us and the things that we were able to do in between that 2-year period. But just due to, I want to be honest and say greed, the people who like kind of had an ownership over it, kind of let it fall through their fingers, and now things are kind of resorting back to where it used to be. So I would love to come back and be like, there's so much talent here, right? I always think of like the story of there's somebody who's better than Michael Jordan, right? But he just didn't get the chance. There's so many people like that in North Florida, so many people like that in Gainesville specifically. So I would love to do that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my own work, is kind to like wave the SOS signal to the world, right? Like, we love Miami, we love South Florida. Hey, there's another part of Florida, and we're doing something that's really cool here. And hopefully, that people will go with God, see my music, and take a deeper dive into the hip hop scene that's in Gainesville. That's the goal.
Oh, I just wanted to say I like how it's described as a breakup to Florida,
Right.
because it's like you always have love for it and they'll always have a place in your heart, but you can realize like, this state may not be for you. Other people may like the state, but I think it's good to find somewhere to live where it's like a good atmosphere and a good community. And then you said that it felt like being a big fish in a small pond.
Right.
I also wanted to ask about that. Like, how do you feel about New Jersey? Like, do you feel like, I don't know, like a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a big pond? Like, how is that?
Yeah, I feel like a big fish in a big pond, right? And I just got there, so I'm trying to find where to swim in, right? I'm just now learning recently, like, about reaching out to perform again, right? I'm like restarting in a sense, which is really cool. In Gainesville, I like sped run the process, right? Where within 6 months, I performed everywhere you can perform, I've networked with everyone you can network with, I know who I am, there's not much more I can do, right? But in New Jersey and, New York, that whole area, there's so many different places I haven't been, right? So I'm reaching out again, I'm presenting myself again to where, remember when I said when I first came to FAMU, I thought, hey, I'm the best rapper in the world, and I quickly was shown you need to do work, right? When I came to New Jersey, I was under the mindset of, I'm the best rapper in the world, and I was quickly shown that might be true, but nobody knows you here, right? So you have to do the groundwork that you did in Gainesville so people can know you. So I feel like a big fish in a big pond. I'm actually enjoying like reintroducing people to Israel Jones, and that's kind of the process that I'm in right now, definitely.
2 last questions, Christina. We're proceeding on picture.
Okay.
I don't know if I can say that I love Florida, but I
I don't
also
blame you.
feel
Yeah.
like South Florida is the only place I can truly exist because of, like, I grew up in a dual culture household,
Right.
and when you grow up that mix, you don't really feel like you belong in like one or the other.
Right.
And I feel like South Florida has allowed me to like embrace that.
Yeah.
Because it's like someone said, it's like a melting pot of cultures.
Right.
So I don't really like see myself living somewhere else.
Right.
And feeling like accepted.
Right. And that's totally understandable, and that's completely valid, and I see that completely. I found in New Jersey, in New York, it's kind of the same way, right? When I went up there, I wanted to experience different cultures, eat different things, and it's cool. I'm like by proxy, like kind of learning Spanish a little bit, like this much. But like it's cool just to be around that, right? So I understand where you're coming from, but this world is large, right? There's a lot of different cultures, a lot of different sections where cultures come together. South Florida is a great representation of that. But I do think there's more out there. Maybe this part of Florida is not that, so I can understand why you're saying I'm not rocking with it. But there is different sections of the world where cultures come together and kind of make a really cool multiply out there. But I definitely understand, like 100%. Last question.
Oh, I was gonna ask what your favorite musical venue that you've played at is.
Oh man. You take me back to where it is. My favorites, I wanna say, maybe I can't think about it right now. I wanna say High Dive, maybe, or maybe Palomino. Maybe Palomino. I think that's what it's called, right? Those two, just the energy of being able to be close to the crowd. I love like being able to like see and touch and feel people, like intimate venues, and those that provide for that, right? But also when there's enough people to like jump and scream and yell, that's also my thing. So both of those places provide the opportunity.
Support the local game to the same fest. I know we got Fest coming up. Are y'all Fest people? Y'all know about Fest? Punk Rock Festival? I never been to it. Apparently it's pretty big. Let's thank Israel with a round of applause. I'm gonna ask them where I can get some more peanuts right here, great.
Side of the road. Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll see you on Tuesday.
Hi, I'm Mario.
Great questions, man.
Yeah,
Have it
thank you.
coming.
I wanted to say, first off, I can get a photo of you. Because I really mess to go with God. And like, finding a place like that is like I'm gonna be listening to stuff. I want to get inspired. The Florida breakup song, I never like broke out.